The world is changing. Parents want their kids to be ready to succeed. So do educators. That's why it's critical that we modernize our education system so students can succeed in the 21st century. BC's new curriculum has been redesigned so that every student gets hands-on experience in collaboration, critical thinking, and communication skills they'll need to succeed in college, university, and the workforce. New ways of assessing and communicating student learning are necessary to support the implementation of this redesigned curriculum. It's important to make clear where students are in their learning and what they're working toward. The key components of quality communication of student learning are: 1. Clear learning intentions. These are learning intentions that are constructed from curricular competencies and content and clearly describe what students are expected to understand, know, and do.
Clear learning intentions to me means starting with the goal, whether that's coming through the big ideas, the core competencies, curricular competencies, and creating that the opportunity for the students to take ownership themselves. For an example, in a recent unit I did with spoken word poetry, start with an I can statement of I can present my piece in a purposeful and powerful manner. And then going from there, giving a chance and breaking the I can statement down and developing the criteria together with the students of what does powerful look like, what does purposeful look like, how can we go through that in the process of their learning, and at the end they have the opportunity to prove how they did those. So they're going to explain to me how exactly were they powerful, how were they purposeful, and breaking down specific examples of their own learning.
2. Meaningful learning experiences. Meaningful learning experiences are critical for our students. These experiences are derived from the learning standards and facilitate learners in developing a deep understanding of the curriculum.
So an example of a cross-curricular unit that we did this year was talking about how one person could make a lasting change in the world, and the students worked through some literacy, some social studies, and some mathematics, as well as some art education, as they looked at different rebels throughout history and how they affected the world. The students then chose someone that they felt they were connected to in some way and created an artistic expression about their understanding of the rebel and how they changed the world.
3. Student ownership of learning. Student agency is at the core of the redesigned curriculum. Student ownership of learning means empowering learners to develop their own voice and encourages self-reflection and self-selection of evidence that best represents their growth over time.
So we really are using digital portfolios in a non-traditional sense. It's not like your traditional grade book. It's actually completely curated by the students. We as teachers just simply set up buckets based on communicating student learning principles, and then the students can pick artifacts of their learning and post them into the buckets in order to reflect on their learning, identify their strengths, and set new learning goals for themselves.
4. Authentic evidence of learning. Authentic learning evidence means that students are gathering evidence of their learning that represents what they know and what they can do. The evidence is triangulated from many sources: observations, conversations, and products, and is linked to meaningful learning experiences.
In my classroom, my students do a Google slide deck where they track their work, their learning, with all the curricular competencies. So there's a 6-page slide deck with 4 competencies on each page, and throughout the year we digitally track all the work that we do and reflect on the learning and justify why they put themselves on a scale of acquiring to extending.
5. Thoughtful descriptive feedback of learning. Descriptive feedback is critical in communicating student learning. It means providing students ongoing, specific, and helpful feedback. Feedback that supports each learner in understanding where they are and what their next steps are.
One way that we're able to conference in smaller groups with students is through our math workshop. So we have 4 different kinds of math stations, and one of them is Meet with Teacher. So because there's 2 of us and we've got 2 classrooms, we can group kids and have a space where we can meet in smaller groups more often. So in Meet with Teacher, in math, we get to check in with the students and kind of meet them where they're at. So in that small group, we can meet with those students and work on whatever skills they need at that time.
BC's redesigned curriculum aims at preparing our students for our ever-changing world. And designing learning around these 5 criteria of quality communication of student learning will not only ensure that parents are well informed about their child's progress, but will also empower students to take greater ownership of their own learning.